We're on the road to getting our YouTube data into Power BI. So far, we've got our application to the point where it can authenticate. And in this video, we're going to complete our app build and begin downloading reports. All right, so now that our application can authenticate, it's time to go ahead and build it out, build the application out so that we can create jobs and download the reports that those jobs generate for us. So let's jump back over to our application. And I'm not going to go through every line of code here. Again, I'm going to share this solution with you, so I'm sure you can read through this. But I do want to point out the basic functionality that you do need to understand to use this application. So let me scroll down here a little bit. So again, this is a console application. It's all command line driven, which works well for my use case, but you could adopt this to have a user interface on top of it if you need to. So one of the first things we need to do whenever we're trying to get our YouTube data into reports that we can download is we need to understand which report types are available. Now, I mentioned this earlier briefly, but report types or the reporting API returns a canned set of reports. They're pre-designed, the fields, the layout, it's all predefined. And what we need to know is which of those reports are available to the user that we authenticated with, or that we asked for authorization to access that user's YouTube channel data. Now, the report list can be different depending on the type of user. I'm just accessing this data as a typical YouTube channel owner, and there's a set of reports that are returned. But if you happen to be a content owner, then your report type list is going to be a little bit different. So let's go ahead and get started here. So the basic flow here of the application is we just have a switch statement, which is going to allow us to pass in arguments via a command line. And the first argument is going to trigger which part of the switch statement we enter. So the first portion here is called a report type list. So let me get a command window up and we can take a look at the report type list response. Okay, so once again, we've already been through the authentication process. So when I make this request to get a report types list back, it's not going to ask me to authenticate. It's simply going to go ahead and use the access token and refresh token that we already have available. So I'm going to issue this report type list command. Okay, so I can see that each of these sections here is defining a different type of report that I have available. And you can see the event is a report type list. The ID is the actual ID of the report type. This last example here, it's a playlist traffic source. You could go into the documentation for the API and it'll tell you exactly what's going to be in that report type. And of course, the name of the report type. So now that we know which reports are available to us, what we need to do is to create jobs. We're going to, for each report that we would like to download, we need to create a job for that report. Now, the thing to know about this is when you create a job, it takes up to 2 days before that job starts generating reports for you, which are just CSV files once you download them. So you need to just keep that in mind. You don't want to be creating jobs, deleting jobs, because you do have this this lag. Now, there's also, you can go read the documentation about this as well, but once you create jobs, initially, the jobs are going to go ahead and begin generating reports for you, not only on a going forward basis, so not only just when I start creating a job, let's say today, I'm going to begin getting reports in 2 days for current data, but the job is also going to go back and it's going to generate reports for some period of time. It's at least a few months of history. So for the first, say, month or so after you create this job, you're going to have both the current version of the report that you're asking for available each day, and you're also going to have a number of reports that are being generated for historical data available each day. Now, another thing I want to mention here about jobs is that we don't want to just continually be downloading the same reports over and over again. So the way we deal with that is each report is going to return a property, which is the, I believe it's called the create time property. So we need to store that create time property locally, so the next time we ask for reports, we only get reports that are created after our latest previous collect time, or create time. All right, so let's step through this here a little bit. We talked about report types list. We have a report types list. We jump back over to the application. The next thing we can do here is we can create jobs. Well, I already have created all of the jobs that I can create. I'm not going to delete my jobs, but you do have a create job command here, and you can just simply pass in as the first argument job create, one word, case doesn't matter, and as a second argument you can either pass in all, meaning create a job for every report type I have available. So that would just go through the report types that you have available, and it will create a job for each one. And then if you want to create specific jobs, then you can pass in that actual job ID as the second, third, fourth argument. And there's a syntax example within the solution, so you can take a look at that. And let me scroll down a little bit here. So job delete works in the same way. You can just pass in as a first argument job delete, and then as a second argument the word all, ALL. And if you do that, the application will go and delete or it'll request that each job that has previously been created is actually deleted. Same functionality for deleting a specific job. It will be job delete and then the actual job ID to be deleted. Okay, now job list. If you want to get a list of jobs that you've already requested to have created, then you would ask for the job, or you'd pass in the job list as the first argument. And let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so here's a list of jobs that I have currently created. I did use the all command or the argument for my job create request. So every report type that's available to me, I've already created a job for that report type. And in the output here on the console, we just have different lines written out that tells us what do we have here. The ID of the job, that's just a GUID. And then you have a name, a report type ID, and then a create time. The name of the jobs is actually the same as the report type. I believe that's an option that you can configure if you like within the application, but by default, that's the way it's going to work. All right, so now we have created jobs. We know how we can delete jobs if we need to, and we can get a list of jobs that we've already created. So the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out when a report is available to be downloaded. And we do that with a command called report list. Now, report list is it's a little bit more complicated because, again, we've got a few things that we want to do here. We want to request a list of reports that are available for us to download right now. And then we may want to just request reports for specific job IDs, or a specific job ID, I should say. Or we might want to request reports that are available for all of the jobs that we've created. And then we also want to store the reports that we have downloaded somehow. In this case, we're going to be using a SQL Server database to store that information. So we need to pass in the connection to that SQL Server database, the connection string. And I'll show you what that's going to do. But basically, it's going to store a list of reports that we have previously downloaded so that we don't download those same reports again. And then finally, we need to tell the application where we want to save the output, the reports that actually are downloaded. So that's going to be a path. Again, the syntax is stored within comments in the actual application, so you should be able to readily figure this out. But I do want to give you some direction so you're not just trying to figure everything out. All right, so let's run the report list. Now, I'm going to set up my command line window again. Okay, so we have our command window set up here. Again, we're just passing in a few arguments to this application. The first argument is just what we want to do, and that's to get the report list back. The second thing is which reports do we want, and I'm passing in all, which means I want all of the reports for all of the jobs that I've created. The third argument is a connection string. So you can see I have a connection string pointing to my local instance of SQL Server. The fourth argument is a path that defines where I want those reports saved. So I'm going to go ahead and execute that, and it'll begin downloading any available reports that I have pending. So you can see it's working its way through those reports. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go over to my file system. There we go. So now you can see that as the reports are being downloaded, they're just being saved locally at the path location that I've requested. Currently, I have about, a couple thousand files that have been downloaded so far, because I've been doing this for a few days, just trying to collect all of the files, all the reports. Of course, at some point, I'm only going to be collecting one report per the job that I've created, because I would have already collected all the reports that are historical at that point. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up SQL Server at this point as well, because this is also recording in SQL Server which reports have been downloaded. Okay, so the application is going to create a record in a table, which it will create for you if it doesn't already exist, called YouTube Report History. Now, each record in this table, as you can see here, it has a load time. That's just simply the time that the report collection completed. Then you have the report ID. This is, of course, the ID of the individual report. Then you have the job ID. Each job will have a number of different reports that you have collected. And then each report will have a start time and an end time. Remember that each report you download covers a 24-hour period. So this is the actual begin and end time of that 24-hour period. The create time, this is actually the one that's really important. Since we've stored this create time, we can now, in the future, we can say, only give me reports that are created after this particular time, which is actually what just happened here behind the scenes. Whenever you requested a report list, the application asked the SQL Server table here, just queried the table and said, well, what's the latest create time that we've previously collected? Let's click, I want everything that's created after that time, so that we don't recollect those reports that have already been collected. Then job expire time, which I haven't noticed that it's ever anything other than blank, basically. And then the download URL. The download URL is used by the application to know where to actually download the report. Okay, so I also want to show you that if you look at this start time here, you can see that this is in November of 2016 on the 8th day. And it's just continuing on here. So I have currently through November. Now we're in December of 2016. Still, I've got every day here of December. If I scroll on down here, now I'm in January. I've got every day of January. And here we go. So now we're in February. So February, all I have currently is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then it jumps to the 24th, 27th, and then goes to March. So exactly in what order the application or the API decides to create these reports for you, I really don't know how that works. There's probably some rhyme to reason, but it does seem to be filling in the missing dates as we continue to collect these reports. All right, so let's jump back over to the command window, and it looks like it's complete. So if I'm to rerun that report list request again, if I just run that same exact request, I'll do it now, I should get no reports back, because I've collected everything now for every job, and it's telling me no reports for each of these jobs that I have created, because I just collected everything, and the API hasn't had the time to create a new report for me to download. Eventually, if I hit this again, maybe I'll luck out and a new report will be available, and I'll just download that report. Nothing's available right now. All right, so these reports that are downloaded have the information that we need, and we ultimately want to get into Power BI. But let's take a quick look at some of these reports. I'm going to open up one. Let's look at, I don't know, here's annotation, channel annotations. I'm going to open this up and make this a little wider. The first thing you're going to realize here is that you're working with IDs and not descriptive names for things like your videos and your channel and your playlist. So I don't really want to have to, each time I'm looking at a report, try to figure out, well, what video was that? I can't figure out what, ID without doing some research relates to a particular video. So obviously we want to take the IDs and translate those into actual names. So to do that, we're going to use the data API, and we're going to ask the data API to give us a list of videos back. And then we're going to store those video names and IDs and descriptions again in our SQL Server database. The same thing is true for playlist and channel. So let's make that happen. Okay, so I'm back at my command window here, and I'm passing in 2 arguments. The first argument, again, is what I want to do, which is get a video list response. And then the second thing is a connection string. Once again, the video list is going to be stored in SQL Server. So let me just execute this, and we'll take a look at what happens. All right, so the command's complete. It's given me an output, just a printout on the console to tell me what videos are included in the channel that I'm accessing. But let's jump back over to SQL Server now, and we see we have another table here called YouTube objects. And this is just a very simple table. Make this a little bit bigger here. For every object, there's an object type, and for videos, of course, it's going to say video. Then you have an object ID. That's the ID of the video itself. That's going to relate to the ID that's in our reports that we're downloading. And then we have when it was published, the title, and the description. That's it. Very simple. Now, the same exact thing is true if we take this and we say where object equals playlist. Here's the playlist that we have collected. And the same thing is true for the command window. Instead of passing in video list and a connection string, we pass in playlist and a connection string, or channel and a connection string. So that's really just about it. The application will take care of creating the tables. That's one thing I want to make sure I'm clear about. You don't need to go create the tables that this data is stored in. It will do that for you. But you do need to have a database created where the application is going to actually create the tables. It's not going to create the database itself for you. Okay, so our application has done the job that we needed it to do. It's authenticated with the API. It's interfaced with the API to create jobs. We've been able to collect the actual reports of those jobs generated for us, and we're storing that information in a database, so we only are getting new reports each day. We've got everything we need to begin taking the actual reports and loading them into a database so we can ultimately get them into a data structure that we can actually feed into Power BI. And that's what we're going to be doing next.